And now we turn to the second part, which is the second part of our rounds of presentation, which is about finance. So now we come to the core business of what banks are doing, what my co-moderator does every day. And I would like to, we have 4 presentations on a short presentation, and I would like to start with someone from the public sector. It's Krista Milne from the city of Melbourne, who will discuss with you something that was already mentioned briefly by Mark from Toronto. He had been learning from Melbourne, as also Mayor Miller brought to the attention of the press this morning. And we will hear now the details of a very enlightened and intricate scheme to finance sustainable energy. Please, Krista.
Thank you very much. And yes, there has been a bit of momentum risen about my presentation today. So just to start, just give a context of the City of Melbourne, where the municipality covers the central business district, so mostly commercial buildings. We've got about 1,800 buildings in our city, very small relative to the city that we're in, and only about 90,000 residents at the moment, although that's growing rapidly. About 10 years ago, we only had 15,000 residents. So we're predominantly commercial building activity. And we've developed a program called 1,200 Buildings, and that really came from a goal that we set about 10 years ago to be a carbon neutral city, so zero net emissions by 2020. And we worked out through our research that 53% of emissions comes from commercial buildings, not surprisingly similar to a lot of the cities that we've heard from today. And then we thought, well, what should the target be for retrofitting our commercial buildings? And we picked 2/3, 1,200. It's a good number out of 1,800, but it also represents what, from our research, we understand is about the right target in terms of what's economically viable, what makes business sense, and what's possible in terms of retrofitting across the city over 1,200 buildings over 10 years. So this is really a program that aims to transform the city. I'm mostly going to talk about the financial mechanism, but just a bit of the context about the program. We aim to catalyse the retrofit of 1,200 commercial buildings across the city to achieve a 38% increase in energy efficiency, which equates to 4.5-star NABERS rating, which is our energy efficiency rating system in Australia. And what that will deliver is 383 kilotons of savings in carbon dioxide per year, and about 5 gigalitres, so we're not forgetting about water, even though the economics aren't as attractive at the moment. But importantly, like a lot of the presentations today have said, that it's 8,000 new jobs over the life of the program and stimulating $2 billion of investment into the city, which is a fantastic outcome for the city. What we're asking building owners to do is sign up to the program, undertake a baseline assessment, develop an action plan for their retrofitting works, undertake those, provide an annual update so we collect some data, we know about what we're achieving, and then we celebrate success throughout the process. But obviously this session is about financing, so how are we dealing with that? And that's what I'll focus on. For the building owners have told us that it's challenging to get access to finance, that the banks aren't lending, and I'll talk a bit about about that in a sec. And obviously the split incentive, where the building owners pay for the upgrade and the tenants get the benefits because they're paying outgoing. So that's the key challenge, and why it's fine to have this great target, but we need to really address that, and that's what we've undertaken. From the bank's perspective, they've identified that there's a high risk associated with lending to this asset class because there's nothing to secure, or very minimal value to secure the loan against, being that if in a default situation, the resale value of motion sensors and lighting is not very valuable. So it's a high risk, and therefore the banks are not... this sort of lending is not very attractive to banks, so that it increases the cost. And additionally, with the global financial crisis, property sector lending hasn't been so attractive in the past couple of years. So really, there's not a lot of private sector finance getting to this sort of asset class. So, and we also identified that the other barriers are what other speakers have spoken about: lack of knowledge, getting the industry skilled up, and also from our perspective in Melbourne, cogeneration financing is quite challenging because the grid connection for particular from our grid is quite difficult in terms of the way the energy distributor runs the grid. So, but we're getting through that. But I won't focus on that. I'll focus on the financial mechanism. So we've recently got a change to the City of Melbourne Act to enable this legislation and introduce what is called a new special charge that we can apply to properties. And it's called an environmental upgrade charge. And the way that it's intended to work, so it's very new, is that banks provide finance to the building owner. The building owner undertakes the works and repays that finance to the city because we've put an environmental upgrade charge on that building. And then the city repays the finance to the bank. So this is now enshrined in legislation, and to establish this system we have to enter into an environmental upgrade agreement with the bank, and the building owner and the city all signs off on this is a good project that we will undertake and put this charge on the building. So that gets over the split incentive for the building owner, because the building owner can pass on that charge to the tenants, because through normal property agreements it's part of outgoings. So the tenant pays for the charge but also reaps the benefits of the upgrade through reduced outgoings. So it reduces that challenge. It also reduces the cost of the finance, because it reduces the risk of the loan for the finance institution. Given it's a statutory charge, it takes precedence over any mortgage on the building in a default situation. So it unleashes private sector funding into this asset class. There's a few conditions that have to happen. The legislation is about 10 pages long, so that simple model that I've just described as normal, the legislators have made more complicated. But the building owner has to notify their existing mortgage holder. So we certainly don't want to encumber assets too much in terms of their value. Tenants also need to opt in. They have to agree to have that charge passed on to them. And it only applies to non-residential buildings at this stage. Because it was seen it's quite a new thing, the state government wanted to take a risk-averse approach when they were developing the legislation for us, and so they wanted to focus on the key being commercial at this stage. It's only just been passed about 2 months ago. This is the article that was in our Australian Financial Review. That's the photo of Lord Mayor talking about it. So we're right in the process of developing all the systems and processes and engaging with the financial institutions at the moment. One of the things I didn't say is we expect that the financial institutions have told us that it should reduce the cost of the finance by about 50 to 75 basis points. So that's quite a benefit as well. We're looking at having the first project announced early in 2011, so very, very quickly. And we've also, the way that we're administering it, a bit like the City of Toronto, we've had a private fund set up by the city for about 10 years called the Sustainable Melbourne Fund, who's been lending. It's a small independent trust fund of about $6 million. It's been lending to sustainability projects for a while, and it will take on the responsibility to administer the project so that us as government bureaucrats don't have to worry about those sorts of details. So we've got a financial body running the program. And we're really hoping that early next year we'll be able to talk more about the detail behind it. I talked about the other challenges, but I think we've spent a lot of time, so I'll just finish with how to get more information. We've got a website, 1200buildings.com.au, and my email address is there. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista, for being so punctual. Also, yes, fantastic. On the second, can I ask a question? What is your personal role in this? Did you invent that? Do we have the inventor in front of us?
No, I actually only started with the city 7 months, so okay. I've just come right in at the perfect time when it's launched.
Fantastic.
But the idea actually came from the finance sector.
It is?
Yeah, as well as learning from other cities, but we worked very closely in terms of what would work for Melbourne with our local financial sector.
Great, and I mean, I know the 50 to 75 basis point, which is 0.5 to 0.75% of the loan. I don't know the interest rates for mortgages in Australia. So can you tell us how much it takes off the bill, more or less, in percentage?
Average, I'm not sure whether there's other people that are better equipped to talk about this, but my understanding, there's no standard, but about 9%, somewhere between 9 to 20%, depends really on
it takes off 9 to 20%.
Somewhere around that
So
the
incentive doesn't have to be really huge. It's not 50%. It's not marginal, but it's interesting.
And building owners have indicated that it's
Fantastic.
Significant. Yeah.
Congratulations. Good luck with implementation now, because that's the proof of the pudding.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a seat, please. And